that we're gonna do. So there's pens, there's paper. You can decide how neatly or not neatly you wanna write, because you can decide at the end if you wanna hand this in or you wanna keep it for yourself. If you're at home, take a scrap piece of paper, any type of paper, and you join along as well. So I want you to think, and this is gonna be really, really quick, right? We're not gonna spend hours and hours contemplating. It's gonna be a quick reaction, write down your first instinct. So think about an activity that you love to do and write down 2 or 3 reasons why you love to do it. Something that brings you meaning in life, something that really energizes you. If you're an athlete, think about why you drag yourself to the gym. You know, I know beer league hockey players that would drag themselves at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night to the rink, but every other night of the week, they're in bed by 9. What is it that makes you drag yourself to the rink? If you love cooking, what is it that makes you head to the grocery store, buy all the ingredients, mess up 10 pans? Is it the smile on the face when you serve someone cookies? Is it spending time with your family, mixing together and making a big mess and laughing? What is it that makes you love the things that you love? Think about the feelings when you're doing those things. What makes you feel satisfied at the end? Write it down on the left-hand side of the paper, somewhere in the corner. Leave some space for some other stuff. And try and be as specific as possible. I want someone else to read your answers and compare their experience to yours, how they feel. Now, the other side of the paper, I want you to write down, I want you to think about an activity that you hate, but is absolutely necessary to do. For me, it might be laundry. It might be going to the mechanic. I hate going to the mechanic, and you know why? Because I hate, like, I might be taken advantage of. I might feel stupid. I might engage in a conversation that I'm not prepared for, and I don't have that comeback. I want you to think about those feelings, those moments where you feel like you might not have power, those moments where you might feel uncertain, those moments that you just detest or hate, like laundry. And I want you to think about 3 things about those events that bring you anxiety, maybe push you to procrastinate. You know, when I think about the mechanic, I just want to hand it off to my husband. I just want to automate something online so I don't have to actually talk to anyone when I go in and get my tires changed. So think about, if I never had to interact with someone, that would not make me anxious about it, and I might do it quicker. If I could book an online appointment. So I want you to write those things down. What is it that brings you anxiety, and what might make you feel better about it? Okay, quick. Now, these are some 4 main challenges that we see in patient engagement all the time. It is not unique to any one group or one set of patients. This happens during COVID, it happened before COVID. They're just things that happen all the time in patient engagement. So that's why I love using them, because I think that if we come up with things and we think about these things, then we can move towards finding solutions for all of patient engagement. So some of the challenges are just engagement burnout. So you get lots of interest, and then it kind of dwindles off. There's lack of incentives, like you want to go, but I don't know if it's worth it because I don't know what I'm going to get out of it. There's a strong community, so the people are really interested. The people want to share, but not necessarily sure how to come together and what to do. And then sometimes there's just, you have all these ideas, you've shared your ideas, but you haven't seen anything come out of it, or you don't feel like you're connected to anything that's coming out of it. So you feel like you kind of have a minimal voice. In the middle of your paper, I want you to pick one of these challenges. Pick 2, pick 3, pick 4. And think about a solution or a thing that would help overcome one of these challenges. But the hard part is it needs to fit between your loves and your hates. So if you think about, I'll give you an example. If I think about lack of incentives, and I talk about my cooking, I like to see people smile when I cook. I like to see them enjoy my food. I say thank you for a cookie. I love that part of that, seeing them enjoy it. My mechanic, I just hate feeling out of place. I don't like being in a situation where I'm not in control, and I don't think that I know enough to be there. So if you think about lack of incentives, my solution is put me in front of people. I want to see them smile. I want to see what I've done and how they react to it. And similar to that, if they are reacting in a positive light, it validates that I know I'm in a space where I'm supposed to be. Unlike the mechanic where I'm not sure if I should be in that space, if someone validates it and says, no, you're right. I totally get you. You're totally right. I know I'm supposed to be in that space. I feel more comfortable in that space. So take your piece of paper, and then I'll tell you why we're going to do this. But think about it. What is it between your loves and your hates? What is it that'll make you get that emotional feeling of satisfaction? And what is it that you want to avoid, that you would do a solution that avoids that? As you're jotting down, I want you to look at that solution. I want you to think about your loves and your hates. And as you move into your discussion this afternoon, you hear about the great work that you guys are doing here. And you think about how you want to move that work forward, keep people engaged in this work, keep doing this sort of work. I want you to stand between your loves and your hates. I want you to compare your loves and your hates with your neighbor. I want you to share your solution and see if that connects with other people's loves and hates. And those solutions are what you can help with your planning moving forward to overcome a lot of the challenges we see in patient engagement all the time. Is that good? We chat with our neighbors. Chat with your neighbors, but I think you can use it going forward. You can start the conversation, you guys can move it forward, and then they can bring up the solutions as we move forward. That sound good? Yeah. Any questions? Anyone want to share? Anyone online want to type in some of the solutions?
Mary Connolly Wilson online says she likes to sing. It energizes her and makes her happy, takes away stress.
That is a fantastic love. And I think there might be a solution in there somewhere for one of these, building a stronger community around similar loves. There you go. Any questions before I leave you? Did it spark your imaginations? Seeing some head nods? Fantastic. I will leave you to use your great ideas to plan well into the future for this great group.
Thank you, Francine.
Thank you so much, Francine. So my solution, I thought, to balance between my loves and hates is receiving positive feedback. So I'll think about that as we're working on our planning and seeing the impact. So I'll see how that could fit into other solutions that we're having problems for. Okay, I am going to go over our CRRAB overview and 2022 progress, and I will try to keep it as short as possible. But please do ask questions. I would really appreciate knowing that everyone understands what CRRAB is and what it does and how you could be part of it. So if you have any questions, please do ask. So I wanted to start with an overview of how CRRAB fits in. So in the image on the screen, There's 3 circles, and each one is a smaller subset of the other. And the largest circle says retinoblastoma community. And the people who are in the retinoblastoma community are all of you here. So anybody who's personally or professionally connected to retinoblastoma, including patients, health professionals, and researchers. And then a subset of that community is the RB research community. And this is people in the Canadian retinoblastoma community who are interested in research. Again, all of you here. And then the last subset of people is the group of CRRAB. And this is now people who are interested in research and also participate in patient-partnered research and related activities and events. And that is all you guys here. So you're all members of CRRAB because you're participating, you have an interest in research, and we're going to be working together to move research forward. So the Canadian retinoblastoma patient engagement strategy was established in 2016 with 3 aims, and we always keep going back to these aims. So when I'm reviewing the goals, keep these in mind because they align with the aims. So share research results with patients, identify and include a large and diverse group of patients in research, and promote research that is created and led by patients. And CRRAB was created to lead the Canadian retinoblastoma patient engagement strategy. And we do that by creating the goals and working with the members of CRRAB to achieve those goals. How the leadership works is there's a steering committee, which consists of Helen Damaris, the scientist, and myself, the parent in research, who are responsible to ensure annual goals are set and goals and progress is tracked towards patient partnership and research. And the steering committee also manages CRRAB tools. But the CRRAB tools, there's a lot of support provided to make the CRRAB tools available to our community. We have social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We have our website. And we have our booklet, which you guys may have received already at registration. The composition of CRRAB, as I already talked to you, it's all of you guys here. But to lay it out more plain it's all our volunteers who make it happen. So it's patients who we have defined as not just people receiving the treatments, but the extended family and friends, health professionals, researchers, and then with administrative support provided by the retinoblastoma research team based at SickKids, we engage the community and CRRAB members. So people participate in patient-partnered research and related activities and events we discussed, but then those who take it a step further and who draw from personal or professional experience to promote patient partnership and research, those who sign up to the Canadian retinoblastoma research community and help others to sign up and seek out families who would benefit from signing up. We call them the retinoblastoma champions. So the Canadian retinoblastoma research community connects people interested in retinoblastoma research. And the best way to be connected is through joining the community. We can do it through our website. There's often links on the back of the booklet. There's a QR code. Through our social media, we share information. But by signing up to the community, you get by signing up online, then you get to receive quarterly newsletters and receive research opportunities. The quarterly newsletters really do provide a lot of information, research related to retinoblastoma treatment and management, plain language summaries, which we've discussed, that's something that we've been working on, education and training opportunities for people in our community, information about meetings and events, so any other opportunity that's happening, that's the main place that you can be sure to find out about what's going on. And receiving research opportunities. This would be invitations to partner in research, so being part of the team. Also invitations to participate in ongoing research as a study subject. So taking a look at our retinoblastoma research community. So this is the people who have signed up. The trends that we see year over year, we started in 2016, and then a lot of people signed up, our early adopters in 2017. And then we've had, I would say, steady growth. But I do want to highlight that our 2022 year has been fairly good, and I'd say one of our best looking back since the beginning, aside from 2017. So this is what you can see is what is the rate of signups for our research community. And then when we look at that yearly enrollment and break it down, just for 2022, we have 15 people who have signed up from Canada and 7 international. And the international number has been growing. We had recently opened the community for international people to sign up, as well as researchers and health professionals. And I do encourage researchers and health professionals who are here to sign up, so you could also be informed of what's happening. It's not just for families, it's for everyone. And to see a broad picture of our people in our community, where they're coming from, I'm just showing you a quick world map. The icons of the person are people who have personal lived experience with retinoblastoma. The briefcase with the medical logo on it are health professionals. We have the book for, I believe it's for advocates. And you can't see there's a research kind of within that big group in Southern Ontario hidden in there. The red or the maroon color is of this last year, and then the blue is of all the previous years. So you could see the growth. So then this brings us to what happens, how do we run and what happens at the annual general meeting and how you could be involved. So the annual Retinoblastoma Research Symposium brings together members of the Canadian retinoblastoma research community. And our meeting here is intended to review our accomplishments, reflect on lessons learned, and develop a work plan for the year ahead. This is also an opportunity to welcome new members, to introduce them to CRRAB, introduce them to the community, and help them see how they can see themselves within CRRAB. I can share with you a bit of a timeline. So I'll just quickly highlight the key pieces. 2016, I mentioned, Canadian Retinoblastoma Patient Engagement Strategy was established. We had our first CRRAB meeting, December 2016. The second meeting followed the following year. The third meeting, we moved to January, and that happened January 2019. And then we had yearly meetings up to this year with 2 online meetings during the COVID times. So going back to the goals, I will share with you what goals, going back to the patient engagement strategy and what goals we set, I will share with you how far we've come with them. So for sharing research results with patients, our goals for 2022 were create 4 plain language summaries of research articles, host 4 cup of tea events, and create 4 video and podcast versions of the cup of tea. So for the cup of tea, I hope a lot of you have had an opportunity to listen to it or see it or attend a live session. It's like a journal club. It's an event intended to bring the Canadian retinoblastoma community together for an informal discussion about a research article, and discussions center around the plain language summary, which is created by a patient partner and a researcher or health professional that they are partnered with. So the plain language summary is shared on our website and is presented live through Zoom at our live presentation. We have a YouTube video saved afterwards and shared with our community. And we had also started Spotify podcasts of the cup of tea, which you could find on Spotify. So we have done the 4 plain language summaries. We have hosted 4 cup of teas for the year, and we have created 4 videos. For the podcast versions of the cup of tea, we have 2 up It took us a little while to figure out how to do a podcast. So this reminds me to mention anybody who has particular expertise in other areas, we welcome you to come join us and help us out with different tasks that we're trying to accomplish, and we could use varied expertise to accomplish them. Now, the next patient engagement strategy was identifying and include a large and diverse group of patients in research. Our goals were to enroll 12 newly diagnosed families and 10 additional families. Also to recruit French-speaking patient and clinician to join CRRAB, enroll 1 patient family from Quebec into the RB research community, and develop an operating procedure to guide health professionals to share CRRAB resources with new families. So the main way that we are encouraging or trying to identify and include a large and diverse group of people is with our booklet, which has been our main recruitment tool, which can be found at retinoblastoma clinics across Canada. And we also have our social media and hopefully word of mouth. So the results, while we have 22 people who have signed up this year, when we look at the type of people who have signed up, there's only been 4 who are newly diagnosed. And this means when signing up, people can say they have been diagnosed within the last year, so we know if they're newly diagnosed. And then anybody past that point is considered additional families. So 4 new, 13 additional. We have had some trouble moving forward with recruiting a French-speaking patient and clinician, and enrolling a patient family from Quebec. And I'd say we need to think about how we set goals perhaps, and maybe set steps on how to achieve them, and have that process ready so that when we are working towards that goal, there's a process maybe we can follow, or what is needed in addition to just setting the goal to make sure that we can achieve it. And lastly, we had developed an operating procedure to guide health professionals to share CRRAB resources with new families. And we had discussed this topic at our working group meetings, and with consultation with health professionals, it seemed like this was not quite necessary. The booklet was working quite well. The third patient engagement strategy point was promote research that is created and led by patients. We do have working groups that are addressing priority 1, 3, and 9, and they all work within each other, within their own group to move that research forward. So we are promoting research that's created and led by patients. And so we provide support to these teams and encourage that patient engagement is a focus in moving that research forward. And there should be the check mark on priority 1 as well. They are moving forward. Yeah. So this brings us to looking at what's happening tomorrow. The research workshop tomorrow, there's an opportunity to learn more about the priority setting research projects, that provide hands-on experience for patient partnerships, help move research forward. This is also an opportunity to learn more about the top 10 research priorities and be inspired to be involved throughout the year. So I would ask you guys all to come back tomorrow and join one of the work groups and participate and help us move it forward. And now we'll move to our 2023 planning, and I'll call Helen over if you'd like to guide us through this section.
Thanks, Ivana. So in thinking of the, what fills us up and how we want to work, I always think about this meeting in particular. This meeting is the meeting we're supposed to set our goals, but always ends up being a little bit dry. And that's the honest truth. So today we're going to try to make it a little less dry, I hope. I hope you've been rejuvenated with Francine's thoughts. And I want you to think about what are those things that make you excited, because we actually need you to put some of these goals into action. And so what we're going to do first is think about the SMART goals we want to make for the year ahead. And we're going to focus in particular on, because of time, we're just going to focus on number 1. And here's what I propose, that for the year ahead, the goal about how can we share research results, we keep going with a cup of tea. That's working well. Everybody loves it, I think. And thanks to you volunteering, both as patient and non-patient partners, we have really exciting quarterly events. The patient-partnered research groups, we have the workshops tomorrow, so we can really nail down the goals for each of those groups tomorrow. So today, we're going to do some brainstorming around how we include a large and diverse patient population. As you saw from Ivana's summary, we made these lofty goals. We wanted to engage people in Quebec. We wanted to get more patient families in the registry. We're doing well, but for some reason, our results and our goals aren't aligning. So we need to rethink our goals. And then in the second part, we're going to think about what's the optimal structure for us to meet and work together throughout the year. What format do we want it to be like? Is it something like today? Do we have any new ideas so that we can really facilitate us working together to meet those goals? So what we normally do is think through SMART goals. So something that's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And if we describe our goals this way, we can keep ourselves accountable to meeting them throughout the year. Here's what I propose to anyone online or in person. If you have other ideas, this is where we can sort of start a little discussion. But every year we think about who's missing and how do we engage them in CRRAB. And this is an example of a brainstorming exercise we did last year. It's an online digital whiteboard. You might remember having contributed to some of these things. We had 2 questions. Who or what groups of people are missing from CRRAB? We had mentioned how we maybe don't have enough representation of siblings of RB patients, or a lot of dads or male survivors or younger survivors, French speakers, people from Quebec, and we decided to focus on certain groups. We have Indigenous peoples here. When we ask people to join our retinoblastoma research community, we take a little bit of demographic information to see, are we getting all the provinces? Are we getting all the backgrounds? Because there could be unique perspectives and knowledge that is essential for us to do quality research together. And then we thought about ways to, better attract and keep people engaged in CRRAB. But for some reason, we're not meeting those goals. So what I suggest is maybe we take a step back and think about those of us in the room now. So yes, we want more people to join us, but we actually have people here today. You've all written down what you love to do, what you really like to do, what you really don't like to do. And maybe our thinking along those lines, we think a little bit differently and think about how do we better equip ourselves as CRRAB and CRRAB members to be able to advocate, to reach out to people, to identify those missing groups, and meet those goals better in future. So what do you guys think about that? And I think Francine will add the Miro link to the online group. You guys can add additional sticky notes there. I'm going to also, I ran away from the mic, but I'll explain first. Maybe Roxanne can help pass around some sticky notes, and you guys can also write physical sticky notes and come up to the front and tag them on our board. And I will attempt to share this link, the Miro board, online so you can all see what it looks like. And that way you can see what we're all at. Oops. Adding to the sticky board. So there's some people adding stuff there. So any thoughts on this approach? I added some sticky notes of my own on there. We don't have to pick them. We could just sort of think, yes. Yes, yell. Right. In order to make materials available in various languages, how do we do that? And who does it? I think you're right. We need different languages. Maybe we need to figure out what our skills and what our, knowledge. I know Greek, I'm learning Swahili, but it's nowhere near good enough to translate anything. Haley is in Quebec. Maybe she can connect us to some Quebec families that might want to help us grow in that direction.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a yes from Haley.
Aboriginal population.
Right. So this came up last year, and I wanted to ask who here is comfortable or knows, is educated on methods to engage with Indigenous community members from who we have in our group, or who would like to learn if you don't know already. Oh, okay, Talib, do you want to? For translations, yeah. Right. So the other thing I wanted to point out, and I think came out last year as well, is if we're going to use languages to translate, then we need to be able to also allow for participation of individuals who speak different languages in things like today, right? So I would certainly like to work towards that, where we could run a multilingual meeting, like you see in the UN, you have your little headphones and there's live translation going. Right now, we don't have the capacity to do that. So we also need to think about, if we're going to make materials available in other languages, how do we then also give individuals who speak other languages the ability to interact with us freely too, so we don't attract people and then they find no way to participate.
Sorry, I just want to remind anyone participating, if you wouldn't mind, please speaking into the mic so that our attendees online can hear what you're saying as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Talene had mentioned the opportunity for translating, and I didn't say. Fiverr.
Yeah,
Fiverr
it's just
is-
one like third-party company that doesn't, and
Okay.
they work with pretty reasonable prices.
Okay.
I've used them for my own books.
That's great. Okay, so we've got that. Any new groups, new ideas from online? Or I see Mary has her video on. I'm putting Mary on the spot, but maybe she doesn't have. Okay. Is this something we need to work on, maybe with our friends at Canadian RB Society, who are great advocates? Do we need to invest in our membership and do some advocacy training, and to learn some of the skills of, going beyond our own community and learning how to connect with maybe disconnected RB survivors? What do we think about that? Natalia, I think you have your mic on.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to the Aboriginal piece. So I work as a social worker, and I sometimes interact with Indigenous families, and in general, connection is kind of the key. So being in person and folks being able to share their story is really impactful. I think sometimes the medical model is triggering for folks that are identified as Indigenous. So I think that's a huge barrier for us in order to like deconstruct that, to engage the families. And it takes a lot of work, but I think it's a really big component as to why we often don't see engagement from the Indigenous communities. So that's like a giant nugget for you, and I don't know how to fix it. It's just, that's my observation from my work.
Because actually one of the strengths, and maybe going back to our activity with Francine, what do you love? One of my favorite things, and that gives me a lot of energy and entices me to keep going with CRRAB, is hearing the patient stories. So that's a strength of CRRAB. We already have a platform and members who really have shared their stories. Is there a way we could reach out to maybe Indigenous families who have experienced RB and invite them to share those stories, and see if there's, where the similarities are, where the differences are? I know Brenda might know some patients in the past who might be willing. how do we do that?
So one thing here, we're talking about reaching out to other groups. And for me, I don't know what the workflow is to know where the gaps are to try to fill.
Yes.
Right? We're just saying, let's reach out, but I don't know what that would even envision to say, oh, I could help with that bit there, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're sounding like a scientist, which you are after after all. So you're right. We could do a better job of presenting the data from our RB research community to understand who's in it and who's represented. We try in our working groups, our every monthly working groups, to try to present that data. You'll see here, I have this develop recruitment role in CRRAB. Maybe that's an idea we might want to explore, where we have a patient and non-patient partner co-lead that, and maybe access that data, present it to our community on a regular basis so that we can see where those gaps are. Because we haven't been doing a good job on the sick kids side, I'll be honest. We're running out of time, I think, mostly. Otherwise, we'd definitely be doing it.
So, I meant even on a more basic level than that, like for this meeting right now, for me to be able to suggest things. I mean, I don't, because we're saying go out and recruit people.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would even envision or what that would mean to be able to recruit somebody. And I don't know, it's like, oh, traditionally you go through these steps to pull somebody, and these are the things we need to do. That's what I mean.
So do we need to figure out a pathway of how we've been doing it so far? Social media. We've been word of mouth in the clinics. We've had an awareness table when we were allowed in the clinics to get every new family. We have, help me out, what other ways have we been recruiting? We've been using this meeting. Caitlin?
Well, it's primarily irrespective of the channel we take, we streamline everyone where possible to the community, or what was formerly the registry. So we've taken these various approaches. Traditionally, it's social media, through the clinicians, as Helen said, but all of that's getting funneled to the community to kind of collate everyone in an organized fashion. And so now we're just trying to think, well, before we figure out how to get them to the community, I think Helen's trying to ask us, is there any other training or things we need to just be more knowledgeable so that we can then develop some of the new pathways? I think we're trying to like really go back to the basics. I think it's the intention.
Exactly.
Yeah, sorry, I guess someone else is queued up.
Sorry, I just said that traditionally the way we, Serge was asking how we recruit to date. And so the past 7-ish years, our recruitment has all kind of come to a center point of we're putting people into what was formerly called the registry. And as Ivana shared, is now called our community, our research community. So we funnel people into that community through various means, including social media, referrals from the clinicians, et cetera. But everyone ideally is encouraged to sign up for the community. And that's how that's the center point, the focal point of our recruitment efforts. And I think what we're talking about now is, irrespective of the methods we use to get people into the community, is there some fundamental training or education that we as a community want to agree to try and take on so that we can diversify our community down the road, I think is the exercise at the current time.
Exactly. Sorry, I'm just giving everybody a better view there. Brenda, or was there another mic? There's one here, Ivana.
Sorry, I skipped a line. I know Brenda was waiting before me. So I just wanted to ask, maybe, can we see who are the RB patients, not see, like the demographics of RB patients, so we know, like, is there a large community that does not align with our research community, and who are we, like, can we see which areas we're missing? So are we focusing on, like, last year we did French and focus on Quebec, but what size is the RB community in Quebec? And maybe we're missing a huge BC community instead, or like, now I know the answer because I've heard some of the projects in the lab, but maybe if you could hear the challenges in that.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Like, what is the base, like, what is our actual community expected to be? So we know there's about, and this is just talking about the patients, because of course the clinicians and the researchers are also members of our research community, but we expect about 25 new patients a year. And we hope that they can, you know, join us at any point. So from age 0, well, I guess 16 and up to 120, however old you are. So if you count 25 people per year, I think we'd estimated there's maybe an available community about 600. Now, how they're across the country probably would change over time. But based on what we know, I guess the majority of new children are in Ontario and Alberta. And from what I remember of when we used to have clinical trials, and maybe Brenda, correct me if I'm wrong, and Hallie and Catherine, about 2 to 3 new patients per year in BC and Quebec. Those are the next biggest groups. So if you have, say, like 10 to 12 in Ontario, another 8 to 10 in Alberta, 2 in Quebec, 2 in BC, and then a handful spread around the rest of the provinces. Does that make sense? Yeah, Brenda.
So my first question is, your numbers are families, not
Correct.
individuals?
Correct.
So they're based on a patient?
Most of our numbers are one person in the family, although everybody is invited to have an individual record. But most often, I believe we have one parent joining, or you know, one survivor.
Mm-hmm. So in the previous exercise, my hate was undone, neglected, postponed, forgotten, lost things I was meant to do.
Oh, yes.
And that includes recruiting to CRRAB.
Yeah.
So I think a project that could help in that would be not just a table in the clinic, but particularly for me, when I go to Alberta, I found in my clinic that half of the old patients I knew really well from sickness had never heard of CRRAB.
Yeah.
So that's my fault. But I need a really well worked out little script and exercise to be not put in a clinic for them to pick up, but for me to talk to them about. And
yes.
That would help me to recruit a lot more people.
So does that meet maybe one of these examples of develop a recruitment role in CRRAB? Maybe we need a patient to partner up with like a non-patient like Brenda to help co-develop that script. So we know what words do we use, given that you're all in the registry, what enticed you? And maybe that wording is something that helps Brenda or Ashwin or Bruce or Catherine. I think Catherine's like a big champion, having brought us a lot of BC people. So maybe Catherine, what's working for you?
I have the QR code on the back of my ID badge that gets me into everything, including our hospital computer system. So I don't ever not have it, and families can take a photograph of it. And because it's there, it reminds me. And I don't find I need so much of a script. I need the reminder to mention it. And partly for me, I'm still a little nervous about doing it in the initial throes of intensive treatment. So I find the first active treatment phase not one that's comfortable. Sometimes the parents are kind of they're over their limit of things to do, or they just say, I don't need to talk to anyone else. I need to cope with what's going on. So it's the ongoing intersects, but that works best for me. I still hand out booklets occasionally, even though I shouldn't be giving somebody paper, but the QR code's a great thing.
Okay, that reminds me, and that's low-hanging fruit. And I think our volunteers have the QR codes. Is that right, Roxanne? Maybe today we can just badge everybody up and give them a QR code on their badge, whoever's here, and whoever is online can request one from us if you don't have it. And that's essentially just a little thing to put on your badge. And then your patients just scan it, and you don't have to think about something. They just get the link and can go straight. And okay, perfect. So that's low-hanging fruit. Can I assign Roxanne and maybe Sam to do that? And then I don't want to ignore the exciting things that are going up on the, oh, there it is. Kate is showing it. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. There's some, I'm sort of at a weird angle and I can't read what's up here, but So we have Indigenous cultural competency training, learning how to motivate people, microaggressions and allyship training, partnering with the Canadian Cancer Society, fundraising training, and partnership building. So those are all really good training activities. Maybe I could ask, if we hosted a training workshop for something here, if we took away these and hosted something mid-year to improve your skills, do you think that by learning a new skill, you'd be interested in taking it further and recruiting for, like by show of hands, who'd be interested in a training activity? I would, maybe. Okay. Who would absolutely not be? And that's totally fine too, because maybe it's what you don't like training. Okay, maybe not. All right, so I think Talene, and then,
Yeah, just a couple suggestions. So, being a parent of a unilateral non-heritable survivor, I feel that we don't really know anybody else that's in CRRAB that is a parent of a unilateral non-heritable survivor, to be quite frank. And every time we come to the cup of teas, or whether it be that or anything CRRAB related, everything's always circled around bilateral RB. And from the takeaway that I've gotten from a lot of members that are part of CRRAB is that almost all families that are parents of unilateral survivors are kind of like one and done. Like they deal with the issue, and then they're done. They're outpatients. They come for their annual clinics, and that's it. So from the perspective, like the point of view of us, like surgeon myself, we feel that how CRRAB can benefit to get more registrants that are unilateral, even in this case, because that would really increase your numbers, is to kind of have a component that would draw unilateral RB parents and survivors to it. Like, for example, our area of need is psychosocial support. Quite honestly, I have major health anxiety since what happened to my son. I'm even struggling with it. And my concerns are about my son and how his future outlook's going to be like as an adult in the world with one eye, driving and navigating the world, being a parent. So psychosocial supports and things like that can kind of draw more numbers for you guys. The other thing I wanted to mention was signage is a big deal. I think there needs to be more like large print signage. Like, I mean, this is wonderful, but I'm not going to see this, and it's not going, like, it's a lot of info too. So I think just something simple, like a big poster that has the CRRAB logo and join us today, and like really like a short little thing, like, your help is needed or something, just to draw more people to it. And another thing is, I think the social media piece is lacking consistency. Like, there needs to be more active, like somebody that's behind that account needs to post in stories, not just post. Posts do nothing. I don't see them. No one sees it. There needs to be someone posting every day in the stories. Someone needs to post reels so that the Instagram algorithm picks that up. I personally, like, I have an account myself and I'm learning a lot about that. Posts do nothing. No one reads that info, and it's really, really difficult to navigate a post on Instagram because you can't even click anything. Like, links are not clickable unless it's one link in your bio. So I think that's just my own opinion, but hopefully that can help.
They only help us if we have people volunteering to do them. So I hope everybody's listening, because these are definitely
if we can have like trusted members that are part of CRRAB, if we can have like maybe a couple people with the password, I'm even happy to be part of that, and just kind of taking turns on a rotational basis. Like, we post that week, this person's in charge of stories, another week, and so on. And like, again, like the whole signage piece is such a big deal, like with that QR code that Dr. Payton mentioned, kind of embedding it there somewhere would really draw more people to it. And like, don't forget about us unilateral.
I think I hear the unilateral piece, you're right. And in fact, I'm sure the clinicians would agree that even though it seems to be one and done, eventually these kids need to be aware of what their risks might be. They might be 0, but they still need to be engaged to know, because there's a lot of confusion out there. Okay, especially as kids aren't getting enucleated as well.
There's a lot of discussion going online. Is it okay if I?
Great.
share
I
the
just,
chat?
one person has been waiting for a second, and then we'll go to the discussion online.
Thanks, Helen.
Yeah.
One of the things I was going to say is I think you need to be able to make the connection if you're looking to gain registrants and you're looking to families, like, because there's such a broad group within this group. You have doctors and physicians and clinicians and scientists, and then you have parents. And so I guess I understand why the physicians or the doctors or scientists, you know, the whole, because your name is research group, right? But I think you need to make the connection to the parents in terms of like why, as in, one, we're not newly diagnosed, but if you were, like, why would you want as a newly diagnosed parent to become a part of this group? And what is the connection or the draw to get those families in?
Okay.
Because I think, because I look at it like research isn't necessarily going to affect my daughter now and today or next month, but it might help the next family down the road. And that's where I look at it. And that's where I looked at it with like the clinical trial and the chemo plaque.
Yeah.
But I think you need to make that connection for the families, because I don't think telling a family to join a research group is going to help their child right now, but it's going to help progress the retinoblastoma
Knowledge.
and the future of that, and progress things along so that those things like IAC that weren't even being available and treated at Sick Kids when my daughter was born 5 years ago, like I look at that and think that's amazing. You know, 5 years ago they weren't doing this and now it's here, and that was because of research. And so, you know, that's where I make the connection, because these things in research are helping what's driving treatment forward. It's just getting those families to understand why it would be important for them to become involved in this group.
Okay, that's good. So I wish, I wonder if, is our recording actually zooming in on everybody speaking? Because I feel like even that, what you just said, would make a good recruitment video. Maybe we could use, maybe we'll just use your voice.
That's okay, you can talk to me after.
Okay, good. And I think there was some discussion online.
Yeah, so it's a little bit all over the place, and maybe I can. It's a little bit all over the place, but maybe I can read everything one by one, if that's okay. So just going back a little bit, Mary Connolly Wilson had said there's a need to connect with older RV survivors who may not have access to CRRAB. We have tried social media and the booklet and clinics. Are there other ways? Kathy Johnson had suggested partnering with ocular prosthetic providers. When we were talking about numbers, Catherine Payton mentioned there are 3 to 5 new cases in BC per year. And Hallie Colton, I believe 5 to 7 new patients in Quebec per year. Quebec is second most populous province. After Dr. Galley's discussion, Virginia Van Wyck had commented, I agree with Dr. Galley. My son is 28 and was diagnosed in 1995. I don't attend appointments with him anymore, and he wouldn't even think about going up to a table to find out anything. He goes to Sick Kids for the eye clinic and Princess Margaret for oncology. I found CRRAB on Facebook, but have not joined anything. Dr. Payton then pitched in partnering with oncology department and interventional radiology. And to Talene's point, I believe earlier, there were lots of comments. Dr. Catherine Payton says, and some unilateral patients have, and some unilateral patients have high risk, need chemo, and have issues yet that aren't heritable. And we have Maureen Hansen, who agreed that lots of valid points were being made.
Okay. Thanks so much for summarizing that, Farheen, and thanks for the really exciting discussion online today. I feel like you're all here, so thank you for being so interactive. We actually wish you were here. Okay, so I'm hearing a lot of things, and I just want to reiterate, I think what from the sort of CRRAB Sick Kids side, what we'd like to get across is we need help. And so maybe, but from your discussion, it seems we kind of know where we want to go and who's missing. So my question to you is, if from the CRRAB Sick Kids side, we put out a call for specific roles, we need, for example, an adult survivor to connect with this oncology group, and then we provide you with some training to do that. Do we have enough volunteers to do that? Because I think year after year, we know what we have to do. We're just, we don't have enough hands on deck, I guess, despite us having a really good advisory group. Would you agree, Ivana? If we sort of, just because of time, and I still want to get to one last goal, if we said we were going to commit to one training activity that would be sort of community driven and maybe equip us with some advocacy skills that we could use in our daily lives, or, in interactions, whether we're in our clinics or in our jobs, would that be okay? And then the other activities, I didn't even look at all these, but are there any, maybe if Farheen could read out some of them, are there any that speak to roles or anything more innovative? I was still sort of hoping to get volunteers. Ivana?
What about if we, for the monthly working groups, or however often they'll happen, their structure may be similar to a cup of tea, in that maybe there's a patient who will help lead it and a health professional, a researcher, and we would focus on groups. So maybe one will be with ocularists, and we could have the conversation focus on that one topic and share information about CRRAB and have that discussion maybe by topic, and then we would invite people we want to be there.
Yeah,
With that specific conversation.
That gets to it. If we can, we also need a little bit of help identifying and attracting people. So we could host these things, but it might be just talking to ourselves. So how do we do that? It's a challenge. Yeah. Ocularists are gonna get us all the people we need. Is that right, Matthew?
So I have your brochures and QR codes in my waiting room. And so they're available for patients to see all the time. I guess I could be more proactive in terms of enticing, trying to recruit people that way. But just having the material there, I find very helpful.
Fantastic. So if we had the material for you and you directed us to this quarterly event that Ivana's talking about, maybe that's one approach.
Yeah.
Okay, so to summarize.
Helen,
yes.
sorry, I just wonder if it's worth a piece of clarity for any newcomers, and maybe this goes without saying, but today, and the fancy room and all this might mislead people into thinking CRRAB is a non-funded entity. So us staff, our salaries don't go towards doing CRRAB. We have no funding for CRRAB. So that's why we call for volunteers every year at this meeting, is because we kind of borrow a bit of time that we're not really supposed to be spending as staff on this, because we're so committed to it, but we really do need the community to get behind this if we want it to be sustainable. And so we're happy to provide some admin support, borrowing from our research grants, but because otherwise it might look like, why do you need help? You've got all this great team, and we have a great team, but we definitely need the community to be engaged for it to be sustainable, and of course to enrich it with everyone's lived experience too.
Yeah. It looks all professional and great because of Ivana, Caitlin, Roxanne, Farheen, Omer, Sam, all our volunteers.
Yeah, thank you, Caitlin, for that. As an accountant, I was thinking that question. No, I'm like, how is this even financed, or how does this run? Because I know that you guys are employees of the hospital, but I guess that was my question, is when you said, well, we could translate, and you're like, well, I could do Greek. I was just like, what is the budget? I guess there is zero budget, right? Because that's, I'm like, what can you outsource if you're looking for things? But I guess you've answered my question. This is 100% volunteer run. I guess I just didn't understand the structure of how this works.
Yeah, this meeting is funded because of generous donors, but that's this meeting. So CRBS, OICR, all those logos I showed you today. But beyond that, to keep it going, we don't, unless we are able to get a research grant and put some of the patient engagement costs in there. So things to fund patient honoraria or additional workshops. Sometimes we've put research workshops alongside this meeting that have been funded by a research grant, like our priority setting exercise. So we kind of make things coincide so we can use some of that funding around the same time, but it's very creatively done. So yeah, I think there was a hand up.
To clarify what you were
Correct.
Not that you're all volunteering to be facilitating CRRAB, that's your position, right?
No, like we don't have, we're science research team. And so patient engagement is a method to improve the quality of our research. In the same way that when we do science, we're also asked to translate that knowledge and share it with non-scientific audiences, but it also falls outside the scope of research. So there's a lot of stuff we're expected to do that falls outside the scope of conducting a study. And no. CRRAB is, it's an advisory board. It's what advises research, you know? So the studies we're trying to do are based on those top 10, getting to earlier diagnosis, getting better psychosocial support. This study we're trying to launch for the circulating tumor DNA for screening of second cancers, those will be studies. And to get to the point of those being studies, we want to engage with families to find out first, what do you want us to study, which was the priorities, and how are we going to study it, which is going to happen tomorrow in our workshops. But in order to have high quality engagement, it starts with diversity, because otherwise you're going to get science that's based on the opinions of a very select group. So that's the danger here. So we want to make sure that everyone's retinoblastoma experience, because we heard there's not enough people who are unilateral here. So what ends up happening when everybody's like, this is a priority, but there's only one family with unilateral non-heritable, we ignore that. So that's why this diversity part is so important, so that we can make sure our science is a representative of all of us, or that we have enough studies that get into all the important parts of the retinoblastoma experience. Does that make sense? Okay.
Idea of CRRAB was studying the fact that we were engaged in research.
Well, we don't study. What we do is we use a quality metric to find out how well is our engagement happening, because we also run the risk of thinking we're doing a good job, and if we don't get your feedback, we won't know where we're doing well and where we're not. So at the end of this research day, we'll ask you if you're willing to participate in a study called it's a tool called the Patient and Public Engagement Evaluation Tool. And that's your way of telling us, is this working or not? So it's sort of like taking the pulse of what's happening, but that's still unfunded. Most research is unfunded. In fact, on my what do I hate doing is writing for grants, because I hate having to beg for money to do my job. And that's the reality of a scientist. Yeah. So, yeah.
Sorry, don't mean to interrupt here, but just want to remind everyone to please speak into the mic so that our attendees online can hear what you're sharing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. Yes. Okay. So, okay, we're still kind of undecided, but if we take back these brainstorming ideas, and maybe the next time we meet, have a fully formulated goal, an activity that builds skills in our community, I think, because there's a lot of ideas for skills, and another activity that, there's a lot here. I was kind of, having defined volunteer roles description and post them to recruit volunteers. That's where I'm leaning towards myself, but I want to hear from you. Yeah. That's yours? It's your one you're voting for? Okay. Better signage to advertise for CRRAB, simple knowledge translation. That's something simple, low hanging fruit we could probably do. And Sam, do you have those QR codes for everybody here? Yes, okay, great. Is that okay if we park that for now and then decide on how we engage going forward? Okay.
4 minutes left.
Sorry, okay. We have a really exciting survivor panel that I think will fill all our batteries. So I don't want to be late for that. Okay. All right. So just gonna scan through to how do we operate? So the CRRAB structure, does the current CRRAB structure work for us? Is it anticipated to help us achieve our goals? And so just wanted to remind you guys of what Ivana said. Right now we have a patient and non-patient lead. That's us sort of communicating with you essentially and hosting the meetings. Here are the additional people who help us run things like the website. Serge Dorna, our great volunteer. Thank you, Serge, for without Serge, patient partner, we would not have a website. The registry lead right now is Caitlin, and we called it the registry lead, but that's the RB research community where our community is described. The booklet, Ivana leads that. Right now the booklet is how it is, but in a couple of years we might want to update it, turn it digital, not sure. And the social media team is led by Roxanne. So you can see that, you know, two of these are research manager or coordinators who kind of do this on the side of their desk. How we've been operating to meet with the wider CRRAB group, we've had 2 monthly meetings, one on Wednesday at noon, and one on Saturday. Actually, they're both at noon. And so the idea of these was so that across Canada, you could pick one meeting. It's the same meeting monthly, so you only have to attend one, but it's twice the work for us. And then those were working groups where we actually brainstormed, and we used that time to make the booklet. We used that time to work on research. Sometimes it's happening. And then the quarterly general meeting is every quarter, April, July, October, then we meet here. And so that's more of a report back meeting. So if you aren't attending the working groups, you come to that one to get an update. And so what we wanted to discuss now is the fact that we're actually losing people on these monthly working groups. And so we wondered if we could, how would you like to meet, I guess? These are all virtual, all via Zoom. We've been operating on Zoom since the pandemic began anyways, even for our annual general meeting. Now I think we'll go hybrid going forward, pending any global disruptions. What are your thoughts on how often to meet? Is monthly too much? If we drop the monthly, do we run the risk of losing any chance at volunteering? Michelle?
Wait, just personally, I like, you know, I'm not going to speak for everybody, obviously. The past couple months have just been rough because like starting my new job and like graduating and whatnot. So weekdays during the lunch hour tend to not work with my schedule. And then, you know, just given like other like hobbies and extracurriculars, like my choir specifically, just weekends was also tough. So it was one of those things where it conflicted in kind of an unfortunate way. I do think the monthly is like a good frequency. I think it's just like unlucky timing, you know, on the last few months.
Hasn't been good. Okay, any other thoughts on Michelle? Even though you say you're busy, you're one of our most regular people. So thank you for that. Yes, Serge.
What about just not dropping working groups like meetings and thinking of another method to do it to get more offline type of work done? Right, like there's different services or just straight to email or something like that to drive it.
Yeah, okay, it's good. What if we took, I really enjoyed today. I think we had a really nice discussion, sharing of stories. And what we forget in our working group meetings sometimes is to share those stories. And that really keeps us motivated going forward, I think. If we did something more like what we did today, so we get to connect with each other. I know sometimes on the Saturday working groups, especially with British Columbia, there was sort of this connection hour that happened after our meeting where people would chat. So maybe we just need to go a little bit more casual, do more offline work, but with described roles. So we could do better at saying, this is what we need to do and we need help, and really map out our roles. And if maybe we can hear back from you, what are the things you enjoy doing? So we can match up what your skills are to what we can do. Because I think, Serge, what works well for us is your ability to help us with the website. I'm guessing you enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I work very task oriented, right?
Yeah.
So I want tasks being fed to me.
Yeah,
And not necessarily have a meeting about that. But that requires someone to be like a project lead.
yeah,
And that I think is probably the crux of the issue of
Right.
having somebody draw up that map and do all those things.
right. Okay. Yes, Farheen?
There's a comment from Mary, or two comments. First was, if you drop the monthly, you may lose even more people, because if you miss the month for some reason, you can at least get in on the next one.
Mhm.
And the second comment was, spend less time on the monthly meeting reviewing everything and picking one of the topics and really working on it. Better use of time, especially for those who attend regularly.
Okay, so I think also maybe in the spirit of sort of transparency, and if we want a more interactive working meeting, then on our end, we just need a little more time to prepare for that. So maybe we start with a quarterly meeting, see how it works, and then we build up depending how much work it takes. Because I think the exciting part of the interaction here today, it took a lot of planning. And so I don't know about our capacity to do this monthly. This is what I guess fills our cups, or, you know, makes us energized. So yes, Talene.
Sorry, quick question. So I know that there are the two options available for Saturdays or Wednesdays for like the afternoon meetings per month, the monthly meeting. But for the quarterly, is there any way we can just add like a Saturday option? Just because like I'm a teacher and I can't, like, my 12 o'clock I'm
Yeah.
doing stuff.
That's good. So
Okay.
our quarterly meeting maybe is not the best on a weekday at noon.
Yeah.
And so maybe we look for a weekend hour. Okay.
Just drop the Wednesday altogether. Like then we'll have more people come. I don't know, like maybe not for the monthly, but
For the quarterly, and then as long as we videotape it and make it available for people who had to miss. Okay. Okay. I don't want to, I've taken extra time, an extra 5 minutes, so I'm sorry, but thank you for that. What we'll do is we will summarize all those notes and share them with you all.